Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Mask Slips. Connor Mitchell stood at the edge of Riverside Cemetery, watching dirt fall onto his grandfather's mahogany casket. The October wind bit through his black suit, but the cold he felt came from within, not from grief, but from the razor-sharp clarity that always preceded his most dangerous moments. 23 years of marriage had taught him to read Victoria's tells, and today, surrounded by mourners, she was practically broadcasting her intentions. His grandfather Albert had been the only family member who truly understood Connor. While everyone else saw a mild-mannered insurance adjuster who'd settled into suburban mediocrity, Albert knew the truth about Connor's 8 years in Army intelligence, the classified operations in Eastern Europe, and the skills that never really left a man's muscle memory. "You're a wolf pretending to be a sheep," Albert had told him once. But wolves never forget how to hunt. Victoria dabbed her eyes with a tissue, pure theater. She'd barely tolerated the old man's presence at family gatherings, always complaining about his military stories and outdated values. Now she was the grieving daughter-in-law, accepting condolences with practiced grace. Connor noticed how she positioned herself between him and the funeral director, intercepting conversations, managing the narrative. "Dad," his daughter Emma approached, her auburn hair catching the dim sunlight. At 22, she'd inherited her mother's beauty and, unfortunately, her calculating nature. "Pastor Williams wants to know if you'd like to say something at the graveside." Connor nodded, but before he could step forward, Victoria's manicured hand gripped his arm. "Honey, you're too emotional. Let me handle this." Her smile was sympathetic for the crowd, but her eyes held a warning he'd seen increasingly over the past months. "I can speak for my own grandfather," Connor said quietly. "Of course you can," Victoria replied, her voice carrying just enough volume for nearby relatives to hear. "But you know how you get when you're upset. Remember what happened at your mother's funeral? The family doesn't need another scene." The lie was expertly crafted. Connor had given a perfectly appropriate eulogy at his mother's service 3 years ago. But Victoria had learned that reshaping reality in small increments was more effective than dramatic fabrications. Death by 1,000 cuts was her specialty. Tyler, their 18-year-old son, stood slightly apart from the family group, his dark hair falling across sullen eyes. Unlike Emma, who'd learned to mirror her mother's manipulations, Tyler had simply withdrawn, becoming a stranger in his own home. Connor couldn't remember the last real conversation they'd had. "The family appreciates your words," Victoria, Albert's lawyer, Robert Sterling, interjected diplomatically. "Perhaps we could." "Actually," Victoria cut him off smoothly, "Connor won't be needed for the legal proceedings. This is really more of a family matter." She emphasized family in a way that somehow excluded Connor despite 37 years of his life being intertwined with the Mitchells. Connor felt the familiar stillness settle over him, the predatory calm that had kept him alive during night raids in Sarajevo and intelligence gathering in Moscow. Victoria had just made her first serious tactical error. She'd shown her hand too early, revealed too much confidence in a position she shouldn't have been certain of. He said nothing, simply watched as she orchestrated the remainder of the graveside service. Victoria guided conversations, determined who spoke when, and somehow managed to position herself as the primary Mitchell family representative. Emma followed her mother's lead, while Tyler remained disconnected from the political maneuvering. As mourners began to disperse, Connor approached Robert Sterling. "When will you be reading the will?" Sterling glanced nervously at Victoria, who was saying goodbye to Albert's elderly neighbors. "Mrs. Mitchell has asked me to schedule it for next week. Tuesday at 10. "Mrs. Mitchell asked you?" Connor kept his voice level, but Sterling caught the subtle shift in tone. "Well, she mentioned that you've been struggling with the loss. Thought it might be better to handle the legal aspects within the immediate family first." Connor nodded slowly, filing away this information. Victoria was moving faster than he'd anticipated, which meant she knew something he didn't, or thought she did. The drive home was silent except for Emma's phone calls to friends and Tyler's music bleeding through his earbuds. Victoria stared out the passenger window, probably calculating her next moves. Connor had learned to recognize her planning face, lips slightly pursed, eyes unfocused, fingers tapping rhythms against her thigh. That evening, as Victoria prepared for bed, Connor sat in his study reviewing insurance files. It was his cover story, work that needed to be finished, claims that required attention. In reality, he was accessing databases and information networks that most people didn't know existed. His intelligence background had left him with certain capabilities that went far beyond filing insurance reports. Victoria appeared in the doorway wearing her silk nightgown, the one she'd bought for special occasions but had stopped wearing for him months ago. "You should get some rest, honey. It's been an emotional day." "I'll be up soon," Connor replied without looking up from his laptop. She lingered, and he could feel her studying him. After 23 years, they'd become experts at reading each other's micro-expressions, vocal patterns, and behavioral tells. Victoria was probing, trying to determine if he suspected anything. "Robert Sterling called," she said casually. "He wants to move the will reading to Friday instead of Tuesday. Something about conflicting schedules." Connor finally looked up. "That's fine. I'll adjust my work schedule." Victoria's perfect smile faltered slightly. "Actually, he mentioned it might be better if just the direct heirs attend initially. You know, to avoid any complications." "Complications?" "Legal things. Inheritance taxes, property transfers. Boring stuff that Robert can explain to me, and then I'll bring you up to speed later." Connor nodded again, but his mind was racing. Victoria was trying to exclude him from his own grandfather's will reading, which meant she either knew something about the will's contents or had reason to believe she could manipulate the situation to her advantage. After she went to bed, Connor opened his laptop and began making phone calls to contacts who owed him favors. By morning, he would know exactly what Robert Sterling's will contained, who had accessed it recently, and whether any changes had been made in the weeks before Albert's death. The wolf was waking up, and Victoria had no idea how dangerous the game she'd started really was. Chapter 2. The File. Tuesday morning arrived gray and drizzling, matching Connor's mood as he watched Victoria prepare for what she clearly believed would be her triumphant moment. She'd chosen her outfit carefully, a conservative navy dress that suggested respectability, while the subtle designer cut whispered wealth and status. Every detail was calculated, from her understated jewelry to her perfectly styled blonde hair. "I should be back by lunch," she said, applying lipstick with practiced precision. "Robert thinks the estate details are fairly straightforward." Connor sipped his coffee, watching her performance. "I'm sure they are." Emma emerged from her bedroom, wearing a black skirt suit that made her look older than her 22 years. She'd learned Victoria's lessons about dressing for the outcome you wanted, not the situation you had. "Ready, Mom?" Emma's excitement was barely contained. She'd always been Albert's favorite grandchild, or so she believed. The old man had indeed doted on her, but Connor suspected there was more complexity to Albert's feelings than Emma understood. Tyler remained at the breakfast table, mechanically eating cereal while scrolling through his phone. When Victoria announced they were leaving, he didn't look up. "Aren't you coming?" Emma asked her brother. "Wasn't invited," Tyler replied flatly. Victoria's mask slipped for just a moment, a flash of irritation at Tyler's refusal to play along with the family unity charade. "Sweetheart, this is really more for the adults to handle first. I'm 18. You're in high school." Tyler finally looked up, and Connor saw something in his son's eyes he hadn't noticed before, a sharp intelligence that had been hiding behind teenage indifference. "Right. The kid who's not worth including in family decisions." Victoria's smile tightened. "We'll discuss everything when we get back." After they left, Connor and Tyler sat in uncommon silence. Finally, Tyler spoke. "She's up to something." It was the first direct conversation they'd had in months. Connor studied his son's face, seeing hints of the man he might become. "Why do you think that?" "Because she's been different since Grandpa Albert got sick. More, I don't know, focused. Like she was planning something." Tyler pushed his cereal around the bowl. "And she never includes you in family stuff anymore." Connor felt an unexpected surge of pride in his son's perceptiveness. "You notice a lot." "I notice everything. I just don't usually say anything because nobody listens to the high school kid." Tyler looked directly at his father. "But I loved Grandpa Albert too. And whatever Mom's doing, it's not what he would have wanted." An hour later, Connor arrived at Robert Sterling's law office carrying a manila file folder. He'd spent the previous night making calls and gathering information, and what he'd discovered had crystallized his understanding of Victoria's game. More importantly, it had given him the ammunition he needed to begin his own. The law office occupied the second floor of a renovated Victorian house downtown. Connor climbed the stairs slowly, savoring the anticipation. He could hear voices from Sterling's conference room, Victoria's laugh, Emma's eager questions, and Sterling's measured responses. They thought they were in control of the narrative. Connor opened the conference room door without knocking. Victoria was seated at the head of the table, as if she were conducting the meeting. Emma sat to her right, while Robert Sterling shuffled through papers with obvious discomfort. The will lay open on the table, pages neatly arranged. "Connor," Victoria said, her surprise genuine for once. "What are you doing here?" "Attending my grandfather's will reading." He took the seat directly across from her. "I apologize for being late." Sterling cleared his throat nervously. "Actually, Connor, we were just discussing the preliminary matters." Victoria thought it might be easier to handle the family aspects first, then bring you in for the practical details. "Family aspects?" Connor kept his voice level. "I wasn't aware there was a distinction." Victoria leaned forward slightly, her predatory smile emerging. "Honey, we've been talking about this. The will is fairly straightforward, but there are some complicated family dynamics that Robert needs to explain. It's probably better if I handle the initial." "What family dynamics would those be?" The silence stretched uncomfortably. Sterling looked between Connor and Victoria like a referee trying to prevent a brawl. Emma shifted in her chair, her earlier confidence wavering. Victoria's smile widened, and Connor recognized the expression. She thought she was delivering a killing blow. "Robert has explained that the will specifically names the heirs who are entitled to Albert's estate. This meeting is only for those people." "I see." Connor placed his manila folder on the table. "And you believe I'm not named in my grandfather's will?" "It's not about what I believe, sweetheart. It's about what Albert decided." Victoria's voice carried false sympathy. "I know this is difficult, but Albert made his choices based on his understanding of family loyalty and—" "Mrs. Mitchell," Sterling interrupted, sweat beading on his forehead. "Perhaps we should review the will's contents before making any assumptions about." "I've already reviewed them, Robert." Victoria's tone suggested the lawyer was being unnecessarily cautious. Albert was very clear about his intentions. Connor nodded slowly, then slid his manila folder across the table to Sterling. "Robert, before we proceed, you might want to look at this." Sterling opened the folder, and Connor watched the lawyer's face drain of color. Inside were photocopies of documents that should have been impossible for Connor to obtain. Sterling's phone records from the past month, including several calls to Victoria, bank deposit records showing a substantial payment to Sterling's personal account from a company owned by Victoria's brother, and most damning, email printouts between Sterling and Victoria discussing modifications to Albert's estate planning. "Where did you get this?" Sterling whispered. "That's not important," Connor replied calmly. "What's important is what happens next." Emma leaned forward, trying to see the documents. "Mom, what's he talking about?" Victoria's composure was cracking. "Connor, I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but—" "No game." Connor's voice carried a new edge that made everyone in the room freeze. "Just information. The kind of information that could destroy careers and marriages and result in criminal charges." He turned to Sterling. "Would you like to explain to my daughter what those documents contain, Robert? Or shall I?" Sterling's hands shook as he closed the folder. "Connor, I think there's been a misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding." Connor stood, his presence suddenly filling the room. "You've been taking money from my wife to alter my grandfather's will. My wife has been planning to steal my inheritance while pretending to grieve for a man she despised. And my daughter has been complicit in a fraud that could send all of you to prison." Emma turned pale, finally understanding the magnitude of what was happening. "Mom." Victoria's mask finally shattered completely. "You bastard. How dare you spy on?" "How dare I?" Connor's voice dropped to barely above a whisper, but it carried more menace than any shout. "How dare I discover that my wife is a thief? How dare I protect my own family's legacy? How dare I refuse to be played for a fool?" He looked around the room, meeting each person's eyes. "Here's what's going to happen. Robert is going to read the actual will, the one Albert signed, not the version Victoria paid him to modify. We're going to learn what my grandfather really intended. And then we're going to have a very long conversation about consequences." Sterling fumbled with papers, his professional facade completely collapsed. "The original will. I have it in my safe." "Get it," Connor ordered. As Sterling scurried from the room, Connor turned back to Victoria and Emma. His wife was staring at him with something approaching fear, while Emma looked like she was about to be sick. "Who are you?" Victoria whispered. Connor smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I'm exactly who I've always been, Victoria. You just never bothered to look beneath the surface." When Sterling returned with the authentic will, Connor listened with grim satisfaction as the lawyer read Albert's actual intentions. The old man had left Connor everything: the house, the investments, the family business, and a substantial cash inheritance. There were provisions for Emma and Tyler's education, but nothing for Victoria beyond what law required for surviving spouses. More importantly, Albert had included a letter to be read aloud with the will. It detailed his suspicions about Victoria's character, his concerns about her influence on the family, and his explicit trust in Connor's judgment about all family matters. When Sterling finished reading, the room was silent except for Emma's quiet sobbing. Connor picked up his folder and headed for the door. "Victoria, Emma, be home by 6. We have a lot to discuss." "Connor, wait," Victoria started. He paused at the doorway, looking back at his wife and daughter. "Oh, and Victoria? Pack a bag. You won't be staying in my house tonight." As he left the law office, Connor felt a familiar sensation, the cold, precise focus that had served him well in much more dangerous situations than suburban betrayal. The game was just beginning, and Victoria had no idea who she was really playing against. The wolf had finally decided to stop pretending to be a sheep. Chapter 3: The Hunter Revealed. Connor arrived home to find Tyler shooting basketball in the driveway, the rhythmic bounce of the ball echoing off the garage door. His son looked up as the car pulled in, and Connor saw a question in the teenager's eyes that he'd been avoiding for months. "How did it go?" Tyler asked, catching the ball and holding it against his hip. "Better than expected." Connor loosened his tie as he walked toward the house. "Your mother and sister will be home soon. We're going to have a family meeting." Tyler followed him inside, and for the first time in years, Connor felt like his son was actually present, not just physically occupying space while mentally checked out. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Are you and Mom getting divorced?" The directness of the question caught Connor off guard. He studied Tyler's face, looking for traces of the little boy who used to build Lego fortresses and ask if monsters were real. "What makes you think that?" "Because you sleep in separate bedrooms now. Because she talks to you like you're some employee she's trying to fire. Because you look at her like she's a stranger you don't particularly like." Tyler sat on the couch, still holding the basketball. "I'm not blind, Dad. And I'm not stupid." Connor sat across from his son, seeing him clearly for perhaps the first time in years. "You're definitely not stupid. And you're more observant than I gave you credit for. So are you. That depends on your mother's next choices." Connor leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Tyler, what do you know about my job before I started working insurance?" The subject change seemed to confuse Tyler. "You were in the Army, right?" "Before I was born. I was in Army intelligence. I spent 8 years gathering information about people who didn't want their secrets known. I learned how to read people, how to track financial movements, how to predict behavior patterns." Connor paused. "Those skills don't just disappear when you file insurance claims for a living." Tyler's eyes widened slightly. "You've been investigating Mom?" "I've been protecting my family. Sometimes that means knowing things that other people prefer to keep hidden." Before Tyler could respond, they heard Victoria's car in the driveway. Connor stood, straightening his shoulders in a way that Tyler had never seen before, a bearing that suggested command rather than compromise. Victoria entered first, her earlier composure completely restored. She'd clearly spent the drive home strategizing, rebuilding her defenses. Emma followed, red-eyed and shaky, looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. "Connor, we need to talk," Victoria announced, as if she were still in control of the situation. "Yes, we do." Connor gestured toward the living room. "Family meeting. All of us." They arranged themselves around the coffee table, Connor and Tyler on one side, Victoria and Emma on the other. The positioning felt symbolic, like opposing teams preparing for negotiations. Victoria began before Connor could speak. "I don't know what kind of illegal surveillance you've been conducting, but—" "Nothing illegal," Connor interrupted calmly. "Just using resources available to someone with my background and clearance level. You're an insurance adjuster. I'm a former intelligence operative who now works in insurance. There's a difference." Connor's voice carried an authority that made everyone in the room pay attention. And that difference is about to become very important for this family. Emma finally spoke, her voice small, and uncertain. Dad, I didn't know about Mom and Mr. Sterling. I thought Grandpa Albert really had. Didn't know? Connor turned his full attention to his daughter. Emma, you helped your mother exclude me from the funeral planning. You coordinated with her to keep me away from the will reading. You actively participated in cutting me out of family decisions. His tone wasn't angry, just coldly factual. Ignorance about the details doesn't excuse deliberate betrayal. Emma's face crumpled. I thought. Mom said you were having trouble dealing with Grandpa's death. That it was better for the family if I were marginalized and eventually discarded? Connor's smile held no warmth. That's not protecting the family, Emma. That's eliminating inconvenient obstacles. Victoria's mask slipped again, revealing the calculating predator underneath. You self-righteous bastard. You think you're so superior, sitting in judgment of everyone. But you checked out of this family years ago. You became a ghost in your own house, going through the motions of being a husband and father while never actually engaging with any of us. The accusation hung in the air, and Connor felt its weight. There was truth in Victoria's words. He had withdrawn, become passive, allowed his family to drift into patterns he should have confronted earlier. You're right, he said quietly. I did check out. I let my marriage deteriorate into a business arrangement. I stopped fighting for my family when I should have been more present. He paused, looking at each of them. But that ends now. Tyler leaned forward. What does that mean? Connor reached into his jacket and withdrew a thick folder. It means I've spent the last 3 months gathering information about what's really been happening in this family. Your mother's affair with Bradley Hoffman. The financial arrangements she's made with her brother's company. The debts she's hidden. The properties she's purchased in her name only. The college fund money she's diverted. He set the folder on the coffee table. Everything. Victoria went rigid. You've been spying on me for 3 months? I've been protecting my interests after discovering my wife has been systematically betraying me for over a year. Connor opened the folder, revealing photographs, bank statements, and legal documents. Bradley Hoffman isn't just your lover, Victoria. He's your business partner in a scheme to acquire properties using my credit and assets as collateral, then transfer ownership to accounts I can't access. Emma stared at the documents in horror. Mom, you're stealing from Dad. It's not stealing, Victoria snapped. It's marriage. Half of everything is mine anyway. Half of legally owned marital assets, Connor corrected. Not half of fraudulently obtained loans, hidden accounts, or property purchased through identity theft. He pulled out a specific document. Did you really think I wouldn't notice you using my social security number to open credit lines I never authorized? The room fell silent except for the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. Victoria's breathing was shallow, and Connor could see her mind racing, looking for escape routes that didn't exist. Tyler broke the silence. Dad, what happens now? Connor looked at his son, seeing hope and fear in equal measure. That depends on how honest everyone wants to be going forward. He turned to Emma. Your college fund still exists, but not where your mother told you it was. She moved it to pay for her property investments with Bradley. Emma's face went white. My college money is gone. Stolen, Connor said bluntly. But recoverable, if we act quickly. Victoria jumped to her feet. You can't prove any of this. Those documents could be forged, manipulated. They could be, Connor agreed, standing as well. But they're not. And I have multiple sources for every piece of information. Bank records, surveillance footage, recorded phone conversations, email intercepts. His voice dropped to a whisper. I have everything, Victoria. Every lie, every betrayal, every crime. For the first time since he'd known her, Victoria looked genuinely frightened. What do you want? Connor smiled, and Tyler shivered at the coldness in it. Justice. He walked to the window, looking out at the neighborhood where they'd raised their children, where they'd played at being a normal family while rot grew beneath the surface. Here's what's going to happen, Connor said without turning around. Victoria, you have 24 hours to return every dollar you've stolen, transfer back every asset you've hidden, and end your relationship with Bradley permanently. You will sign papers giving me full custody of Tyler and agreeing to supervised visitation only. And if I refuse? Connor turned back to face his family. Then I release everything to the authorities, to your employer, to your family, and to Bradley's wife. Criminal charges, civil lawsuits, public humiliation, financial ruin. He paused. Complete destruction. Emma was crying silently now. Dad, she's still my mom. She's a criminal who used you to commit crimes against your own family. Connor replied gently but firmly. That doesn't stop because she gave birth to you. Tyler stood up slowly. What about me? Do I get a choice in who I live with? Connor looked at his son, seeing strength there he'd underestimated. You're 18. You can make your own decisions about where you want to be. Tyler walked over to stand beside his father. I want to stay with you. Victoria's composure finally shattered completely. You bastards. You ungrateful, vindictive bastards. After everything I've done for this family. Everything you've done to this family, Connor corrected. The game's in now, Victoria. Either you salvage what you can of your dignity by cooperating, or I destroy you completely. As Victoria stormed from the room, Connor felt a grim satisfaction settle over him. The wolf was no longer hiding, and the hunt had officially begun. The next phase would determine whether his family could be saved, or whether some betrayals were simply too deep to forgive. Chapter 4. The Web Titans. Connor spent the following morning in his home office, methodically working through what Victoria liked to call his insurance paperwork. In reality, he was coordinating with contacts from his intelligence days, people who understood that information was the most valuable currency in any conflict. His laptop displayed multiple windows, financial records, surveillance reports, and communication intercepts that painted a detailed picture of Victoria and Bradley's operations. Bradley Hoffman was proving to be exactly what Connor expected, a middle-aged divorce attorney with expensive tastes and flexible ethics. His law practice specialized in high-asset divorces, which had given him both the knowledge and the contacts to help Victoria systematically strip assets from her marriage. More interesting was Bradley's own financial situation. Underwater on his mortgage, behind on his kids' private school tuition, and desperately leveraging other people's marriages to fund his lifestyle. The irony wasn't lost on Connor. Bradley was using his expertise in divorce litigation to help married women hide assets from their husbands, while his own marriage was apparently solid. His wife Amanda seemed genuinely unaware of his affairs, based on her social media posts and credit card activity. She was still planning their 20th anniversary party for next month, still posting loving family photos, still believing in the life Bradley was systematically destroying. Tyler knocked on the office door around 10. Dad, can I talk to you? Of course. Connor minimized his screens and gestured to the chair across from his desk. How are you holding up? Better than I expected. Tyler settled into the chair, looking more mature than his 18 years. I've been thinking about what you said yesterday, about Mom stealing Emma's college money. What about it? Emma doesn't know everything, does she? About how long this has been going on, or how much money is involved. Connor studied his son's face, seeing intelligence and perception that reminded him uncomfortably of himself at that age. Why do you ask? Because Emma's been texting me all morning, trying to figure out if she should believe you or Mom. She's confused and scared and angry, but she's not thinking clearly. Tyler leaned forward. But I've been watching Mom for months, Dad. I've seen the new clothes, the unexplained absences, the way she talks to someone on the phone when she thinks nobody's listening. This isn't new. How long have you suspected? Since last Christmas. Maybe longer. Tyler's voice was steady, but Connor could see the pain underneath. I kept hoping I was wrong, that there was some explanation that didn't involve Mom being. He struggled for the word. A criminal? A stranger? Someone I never really knew at all. Connor felt a surge of protectiveness toward his son, mixed with guilt for not recognizing Tyler's awareness sooner. I'm sorry you had to figure this out on your own. I'm not, Tyler said firmly. I'm 18, Dad. I needed to know who my family really is, not who I wanted them to be. Before Connor could respond, his phone buzzed with a text message from Victoria. We need to talk. Privately. 1 hour. Connor showed the message to Tyler, who read it and shook his head. She's going to try to manipulate you, make you feel guilty or sorry for her, or responsible for fixing this. You think so? I know so. It's what she does. Tyler stood up. Dad, can I ask you something else? Anything. When this is over, when all the legal stuff is settled and Mom is gone, are you going to be okay? I mean really okay, not just pretending? The question caught Connor off guard with its maturity and genuine concern. I don't know, he admitted. But I know I'll be better than I am now. Living with betrayal is worse than dealing with its consequences. Tyler nodded. Good. Because I want my real dad back, not the ghost who's been living here for the past few years. An hour later, Connor met Victoria at Morrison's Cafe, a neutral location where her tendency toward dramatic scenes would be constrained by public setting. She was already seated when he arrived, and he noticed she'd chosen a corner table that would give them privacy while still being visible to other customers. Victoria looked exhausted, her usual perfect grooming showing stress fractures. Her makeup couldn't quite hide the dark circles under her eyes, and her hands shook slightly as she lifted her coffee cup. "You look terrible," Connor said as he sat down. "Thank you. That's exactly what I needed to hear." Victoria's smile was brittle. "Connor, we need to find a way to work this out. For the kids' sake, if nothing else." "I'm listening." "This has gotten out of hand. Yes, I made some mistakes. Yes, I should have been more honest about the financial arrangements. But destroying our entire family over some indiscretions isn't going to help anyone." Connor sipped his coffee, studying his wife's face. "Indiscretions? My relationship with Bradley was wrong. I admit that. But it's over now, and we can rebuild if we're both willing to be mature about this. Your relationship with Bradley was adultery. Your financial activities were theft. Your manipulation of our children was emotional abuse." Connor's voice remained level. "These aren't indiscretions, Victoria. They're crimes." Victoria's mask slipped again, revealing frustration and fear. "What do you want from me, Connor? Groveling? Public humiliation? You've already won. You have the will, you have the evidence, you have the kids taking your side. What more do you need? I need you to understand that this isn't about winning or losing. It's about consequences." Connor leaned forward slightly. "You spent over a year systematically betraying everyone who trusted you. You stole from our children's future. You corrupted our daughter into helping you commit fraud. You turned our family into a shell company for your criminal enterprise." "Criminal enterprise? Connor, you're being ridiculous." "Am I?" Connor placed his phone on the table, displaying a photo of Bradley's law office. "I spent this morning learning about Bradley's other clients. 3 other women, all going through divorces, all using the same asset-hiding strategies he developed with you. He's been running a systematic fraud operation, and you're not his first partner." Victoria went very still. "What are you talking about?" "Bradley Hoffman has been using his position as a divorce attorney to help wealthy women steal from their husbands for years. You're part of a pattern, Victoria. A business model." Connor swiped to the next photo, showing Bradley with another woman at a restaurant. "This is Jennifer Walsh. Divorced last year, managed to hide $2 million from her ex-husband using Bradley's methods. They were lovers too." The color drained from Victoria's face. "That's not. Bradley said I was special, that we were building something together. You were building something together. A criminal conspiracy that's about to collapse." Connor put his phone away. "Bradley doesn't love you, Victoria. He's using you the same way he's used other women, as a source of money and validation while he maintains his respectable family life." Victoria stared at her coffee cup, and Connor could see her world reshaping itself around this new information. "How do you know all this?" "Because I'm very good at finding information when I need it." Connor's voice softened slightly. "Victoria, you've been played. Bradley identified you as a wealthy, dissatisfied wife and ran a long-term con that made you feel special while he systematically used you to commit crimes. You're lying. I'm offering you a way out." Connor reached across the table, not quite touching her hand. "Help me recover the stolen assets. Testify against Bradley's operation. Cooperate with the authorities, and you might avoid prison." Victoria looked up, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "And our marriage is over." Connor's voice held no cruelty, just finality. "That ended when you chose to betray our family. But your freedom doesn't have to end with it." Victoria was quiet for a long moment, processing the wreckage of her carefully constructed plans. "What about Emma? She thinks I'm a monster now. Emma thinks you're a criminal because you committed crimes. What she thinks of you as a person will depend on how you handle yourself from this point forward." "And Tyler? Tyler figured out you were lying months ago. He's been waiting for someone to tell him the truth." Victoria nodded slowly, wiping her eyes with a napkin. "If I cooperate, if I help you get the money back and testify against Bradley, what happens to me? That depends on how complete your cooperation is and how much damage you've actually done." Connor stood up. "You have until tonight to decide. After that, I proceed without your help." As Connor walked away, he felt Victoria watching him. The woman he'd married 23 years ago was still in there somewhere, buried under layers of entitlement, selfishness, and poor choices. But that woman was no longer his responsibility. The wolf had found his prey's weakness. Now it was time to close the trap. Chapter 5. The Trap Springs. Connor returned home to find Emma sitting at the kitchen table, her laptop open and documents spread around her like evidence at a crime scene. She looked up when he entered, and he saw his own analytical nature reflected in her focused intensity. "I've been going through my college accounts," she said without preamble, "cross-referencing them with the bank statements you showed us yesterday." Connor sat down across from her, noting the methodical way she'd organized the financial records. "What did you find?" "Mom started moving money out of my college fund 14 months ago. Small amounts at first, then larger chunks." Emma's voice was steady, but Connor could see the hurt underneath her controlled exterior. "She didn't just steal from it. She systematically drained it while telling me it was growing." "How much?" $87,000. Emma closed her laptop with a sharp click. "My entire future just gone. Transferred to accounts I can't access. Invested in properties I've never seen." Connor felt a surge of rage that surprised him with its intensity. Stealing from him was one thing. He could protect himself, fight back, rebuild. But Emma was 22 years old, just starting her adult life, and Victoria had sabotaged her daughter's future to fund an affair. "Emma, I need you to know something. This money is recoverable. I have forensic accountants tracking every transaction, and most of the assets can be clawed back through legal proceedings." "That's not the point, Dad." Emma's composure cracked slightly. "The money isn't the worst part. The worst part is that she looked me in the eye for over a year and lied to me about my own future. She let me make plans, apply to graduate programs, turn down job opportunities because I thought my education was secure." Connor reached across the table, covering his daughter's hand with his own. "I'm sorry I didn't catch this sooner. You couldn't have known if she was hiding it this well." Emma looked at him directly, and Connor saw Victoria's intelligence there, but coupled with something Victoria lacked, genuine empathy. "Dad, Tyler told me about your conversation yesterday, about your background, about the skills you used to investigate all this. What about it?" "I want to help." Emma's voice gained strength. "I want to help you destroy Bradley Hoffman." The cold determination in her tone reminded Connor uncomfortably of himself. "Emma, this isn't your fight." "Yes, it is." She opened her laptop again, pulling up a new document. "I've been researching Bradley's law practice, his other clients, his financial structure. He's vulnerable, Dad. Really vulnerable." Connor studied the screen, seeing that Emma had indeed done significant research. "What did you find?" "His weakness isn't financial. It's his reputation." Emma clicked through several web pages. "Bradley's built his practice on being the family values divorce attorney. He markets himself to wealthy conservative women as someone who understands traditional family dynamics, but will fight aggressively for their interests. And he's running for family court judge next year. His campaign literature is all about protecting families, maintaining moral standards in the legal system, holding people accountable for their choices." Emma's smile was sharp and calculating. If it came out that he's been systematically destroying families while building his own career, Connor felt a mixture of pride and concern. Emma had inherited his tactical thinking, but she was channeling it through hurt and betrayal. "What exactly are you proposing?" "Public exposure. Not just criminal charges, but complete reputational destruction." Emma pulled up Bradley's campaign website. "He's hosting a fundraiser next Friday. Families First, a vision for family court. 200 guests, local media coverage, the works." "Emma, revenge isn't the same as justice, isn't it?" She looked at him with eyes that were older than her years. "Dad, this man has been destroying families for years. Using his position to help wealthy women commit crimes, manipulating vulnerable people, betraying his own wife and children. How is exposing that revenge instead of justice?" Before Connor could answer, Tyler burst through the front door, his face flushed with excitement and anger. "Dad, you need to see this." Tyler pulled out his phone, showing them a video he'd apparently recorded from his car. "I followed Mom after she met with you. She went straight to Bradley's office, and they had a huge fight in the parking lot." The video was shaky but clear enough to show Victoria and Bradley arguing heatedly beside his BMW. Their body language suggested a relationship imploding under stress. "Can you hear what they're saying?" Connor asked. "Some of it." Tyler scrolled to a different part of the video. Mom was crying, asking him about other women. Bradley was telling her she was being paranoid and jealous. Then she accused him of using her, and he laughed. Connor watched his wife's world crumble in real time, feeling a complex mixture of satisfaction and pity. What happened next? She slapped him hard, then got in her car and drove away. Tyler looked between his father and sister. Dad, I don't think she's coming home tonight. Emma leaned back in her chair, processing this information. So Mom knows about Bradley's other women now. She knows she's been played, which means she's going to be angry, humiliated, and potentially cooperative, Connor observed. Or desperate and dangerous. As if summoned by their conversation, Connor's phone rang. Victoria's number appeared on the screen. Answer it, Emma said. Put it on speaker. Connor hesitated, then accepted the call and activated the speaker function. Victoria's voice filled the kitchen, tight with barely controlled hysteria. Connor, we need to talk. Now. I'm listening. Not on the phone. In person. Victoria's breathing was rapid, suggesting panic or fury. I'll give you everything. Every account number, every property deed, every document you need. But I want something in return. What? I want you to destroy Bradley Hoffman. Victoria's voice dropped to a whisper. I want you to ruin him the way he ruined me. Connor looked at Emma and Tyler, seeing his own thoughts reflected in their faces. Victoria was offering to cooperate, but her motivation was revenge rather than redemption. It was an alliance of convenience, not reconciliation. Where do you want to meet? Connor asked. Our house. I'm coming home. The line went dead. Emma closed her laptop with a sharp snap. Well, this should be interesting. Tyler sat down heavily, suddenly looking younger than his 18 years. Is it bad that I'm excited to watch Mom and Bradley destroy each other? Connor considered the question seriously. No, Tyler. After what they've done to our family, wanting to see them face consequences is natural. But revenge is a dangerous motivation. It can consume the people seeking it as much as the people receiving it. Connor looked at both of his children. We're going to get justice. We're going to recover our assets and hold the guilty parties accountable. But we're not going to let this destroy who we are in the process. Emma nodded slowly. So we use Mom's information to build the case against Bradley, but we don't trust her motivations. Exactly. Connor felt a surge of pride in both of his children's maturity. We're going to be smart about this, not emotional. As they waited for Victoria to return home, Connor reflected on how much his family had changed in just 3 days. Tyler was engaged and thoughtful. Emma was analytical and determined. And Connor himself felt more alive than he had in years. The wolf pack was forming, and the hunt was about to reach its climax. Chapter 6. Blood and Bargains. Victoria returned home looking like she'd aged 5 years in 5 hours. Her perfect hair was disheveled, her makeup smeared, and her designer dress wrinkled from what had clearly been an emotional confrontation. She walked into the kitchen where Connor, Emma, and Tyler were waiting, and Connor saw something in her eyes he'd never seen before, complete defeat. I've been such a fool, she said without preamble, collapsing into a chair. Such a stupid, vain fool. Emma watched her mother with clinical detachment. What happened with Bradley? Victoria laughed bitterly. Your father was right. Bradley has been running the same con on multiple women for years. I confronted him with Connor's evidence, and he didn't even try to deny it. She wiped her eyes, smearing her mascara further. He told me I was getting too emotional, too demanding, that I should be grateful for what we had instead of expecting some fairy tale romance. Tyler leaned forward. So you broke up with him? He broke up with me. Said our arrangement had become too complicated, too risky. Victoria's voice hardened. 23 years of marriage I threw away for a man who thinks of me as a convenient business partner with benefits. Connor felt no satisfaction in being proven right. Victoria's pain was real, even if it was self-inflicted. Victoria, I need to know exactly what you gave Bradley access to. Bank accounts, investment portfolios, property deeds, everything. I have a list. Victoria pulled a folded paper from her purse. I spent the afternoon reconstructing every transaction, every document I signed, every account I opened. She slid the paper across the table. It's worse than I thought. Connor unfolded the paper, scanning the detailed list. The scope of the theft was staggering. Not just Emma's college fund, but Connor's retirement accounts, equity lines against their house, business loans taken against his insurance practice, and investments made with money that didn't legally exist. Jesus, Victoria. This is over $300,000. $347,000, to be exact. Victoria's voice was flat, emotionless. Plus 2 rental properties purchased with fraudulent loans, and a business partnership that gives Bradley control over assets we can't legally touch. Emma stared at her mother in shock. You destroyed our entire financial future for a man who dumped you the moment things got complicated? Yes. Victoria met her daughter's eyes directly. Yes, I did. And I would give anything to undo it. Tyler had been quiet during this exchange, but now he spoke up. Mom, why? I mean, really, why? Dad's not perfect, but he never treated you badly. He worked hard. He was faithful. He loved us. What made you throw that away? Victoria was silent for a long moment, staring at her hands. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. Because I felt invisible. Because your father checked out of our marriage years ago, and I felt like I was living with a stranger who tolerated me but didn't really see me. She looked up at Connor. When Bradley paid attention to me, when he made me feel interesting and desirable and important, I convinced myself I deserved that feeling, regardless of the cost. Connor absorbed this, recognizing the truth in Victoria's words alongside the self-serving justification. You felt neglected, so you decided to commit crimes. I felt worthless, so I made catastrophically stupid decisions. Victoria's honesty was brutal. I told myself I was taking what I deserved, what I was entitled to as your wife and partner. But really, I was just trying to feel powerful for the first time in years. Emma's expression softened slightly. Mom, if you were unhappy, why didn't you just ask for a divorce? Why the elaborate scheme? Because divorce would have meant splitting everything fairly. This way, I thought I could keep the lifestyle I wanted while also having the excitement I thought I needed. Victoria shook her head. I thought I was being clever. I thought I could have everything. Connor studied his wife's face, seeing genuine remorse mixed with self-pity. Victoria, I need to know about Bradley's other operations. His other clients, his methods, his vulnerabilities. Why? Because he's going to keep doing this to other families unless he's stopped completely. Connor's voice carried the cold precision that his children were learning to recognize. And because he still has control over assets that belong to us. Victoria pulled out her phone, scrolling through her contacts. I have information about 3 other women Bradley's been working with. Jennifer Walsh, who you already know about. Sarah Chun, who's currently going through her divorce. And Dr. Angela Morris, who finished her divorce 6 months ago, but is still involved in hiding assets from her ex-husband. Are they all having affairs with Bradley? Jennifer was. Sarah might be. They're very friendly. Angela definitely isn't, but she pays him a consulting fee that's way above normal legal rates. Victoria looked sick. Connor, I think Bradley has been blackmailing some of these women after their divorces are final. He knows too much about their financial crimes to ever really let them go. Tyler whistled softly. So he's not just a cheating divorce lawyer. He's running a long-term extortion operation. That's what it looks like. Victoria met Connor's eyes. I was probably going to be his next long-term victim once our divorce was final. He would have had enough evidence to destroy me if I ever tried to cut ties. Connor felt pieces falling into place in his mind. Victoria, I want you to call Bradley tonight. Tell him you've reconsidered, that you want to work things out. What? Connor, I can't. You can, and you will. Connor's voice brooked no argument. Because tomorrow night is his campaign fundraiser, and we're going to make sure it's a night he never forgets. Emma leaned forward, her eyes bright with understanding. Dad, what are you planning? Connor smiled, and for the first time in days, it held genuine warmth. We're going to give Bradley exactly what he deserves. Complete and total destruction. How? By using his own methods against him. By gathering evidence of his crimes and presenting it to the people who matter most to his future. Connor looked around the table at his family. Victoria, you're going to help us record his confession. Emma, you're going to help us compile evidence for the authorities. Tyler, you're going to help us document everything for civil litigation. Victoria shook her head. Connor, if Bradley finds out I'm working with you, he won't. Because you're going to be very convincing when you tell him you want to salvage your relationship. Connor's expression hardened. And because by the time he figures out what's happening, it will be too late. Tyler grinned. This is going to be epic. Emma nodded slowly. Mom, are you ready to do this? Really ready? Because once we start, there's no going back. Victoria looked around the table at her family, the people she'd betrayed and who were now offering her a chance at redemption. Yes, I'm ready to make this right. Connor stood up, feeling the familiar rush of a plan coming together. Then let's go hunting. The wolf pack was complete, and tomorrow night, Bradley Hoffman would learn what happened to predators who chose the wrong family to target. Chapter 7. The Gathering Storm. The next morning, Connor sat in his car outside Bradley's law office, watching through telephoto lens as his target arrived for work. Bradley looked confident, even arrogant, as he strode through the parking lot in his $1,000 suit, apparently unconcerned about the chaos he'd left in Victoria's life. The man had no idea that his carefully constructed world was about to collapse. Connor's phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Recording equipment tested and ready. Mom's doing great in rehearsal. Another message from Tyler. Guest list for tonight acquired. I know 3 people going to the fundraiser. Victoria had played her role perfectly the night before, calling Bradley to apologize for her emotional outburst and suggesting they meet before his fundraiser to discuss their future. Bradley had agreed readily, probably assuming Victoria would be easy to manipulate back into compliance. He had no way of knowing that Connor had spent years training people to deceive much more sophisticated targets than a small-town divorce attorney. Connor's phone rang, and Robert Sterling's name appeared on the screen. The lawyer's involvement in the wolf fraud had made him desperate to cooperate with Connor rather than face criminal charges. Connor, I have the financial documents you requested. Bradley's accounts, his business partnerships, his campaign finances, everything. And he's broke, completely leveraged. The only thing keeping his practice afloat is the money he's taking from clients like Victoria. Sterling's voice was shaky. Connor, if this goes public, it's not just going to destroy Bradley. It's going to bring down his entire law firm. 3 other attorneys work there. That's not my problem, Robert. Connor's voice held no sympathy. You should have thought about collateral damage before you decided to help them commit crimes. I know. I'm just saying, there are going to be a lot of innocent victims when this breaks. Connor considered this. Sterling was right. Bradley's secretary, his junior associates, his clients with legitimate legal needs would all suffer when his practice collapsed. But Connor had learned long ago that surgical strikes were rarely possible in warfare. Sometimes innocent people got hurt when you took down legitimate targets. Robert, I want you to prepare emergency contingency plans for Bradley's legitimate clients. Transfer their files to other attorneys. Protect their interests as much as possible. Connor paused. And I want you to set up a victims fund for the people Bradley has defrauded. Anonymous donations from recovered assets. You're going to give back stolen money? I'm going to make sure Bradley's victims are made whole, yes. After we recover our own assets first. Connor ended the call and drove home, where he found his family engaged in what looked like military-style preparation. Emma had transformed the dining room into a command center, with laptops, recording equipment, and legal documents spread across the table. Tyler was testing camera equipment, while Victoria practiced her conversation with Bradley in front of a mirror. How's it going? Connor asked. Emma looked up from her laptop. Mom's gotten really good at acting like she still trusts Bradley. And Tyler figured out how to live stream video directly to a cloud server. So even if they find the recording equipment, we'll have backup. What about the fundraiser? Tyler grinned. I called 3 friends whose parents are going tonight. They're going to make sure their phones are recording when things get interesting. Connor felt a surge of pride in his children's tactical thinking. And the evidence packages? Ready for distribution. Emma gestured to a stack of manila envelopes. Copies going to the State Bar Association, the District Attorney's Office, the FBI's White-Collar Crime Division, and every major media outlet in the state. Victoria stopped practicing and turned to face Connor. Are you sure about this? Once we do this, there's no going back. Bradley will know I betrayed him, and he'll try to destroy me out of spite. He's already destroyed you, Victoria. Now you're just returning the favor. Connor's voice softened slightly. And you won't be facing his retaliation alone. We're a family, and families protect each other. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. After everything I've done, you're still willing to protect me? I'm willing to protect the mother of my children and the woman I married 23 years ago, Connor replied carefully. Whether that person still exists underneath your mistakes is something only you can determine. 2 hours later, Victoria sat across from Bradley in his office, her purse containing recording equipment that would capture everything they discussed. Connor monitored the conversation from his car outside, listening through an earpiece while Emma and Tyler tracked everything from home. Bradley was in full charm mode, apologizing for his harsh words the day before and assuring Victoria that their relationship was still valuable to him. He was also laying groundwork for what Connor recognized as emotional manipulation designed to keep Victoria compliant and useful. You have to understand, Vicky, this business requires discretion. When you get emotional and make scenes, you put everything we've built at risk. Bradley's voice was smooth, practiced, but I value what we have, both professionally and personally. I was scared, Bradley. Connor knows more than we thought he did, and I wasn't sure how to handle it. Victoria's performance was flawless, vulnerable but not panicked, concerned but still loyal. What exactly does Connor know? He has bank records, transaction histories, property documents. He knows about the asset transfers, the hidden accounts, everything. Victoria paused. But he doesn't know about your other clients. He thinks it's just us. Connor smiled grimly as he listened to Bradley process this information. The lawyer was probably calculating how much evidence Connor could realistically have gathered and whether it posed a threat to his broader operation. Vicky, I need you to be very clear about something. Your husband can make accusations, but proving criminal activity is much more difficult. As long as we present a united front, as long as our stories align, he can't touch us. What if he goes to the police? Then we deny everything. We claim the asset transfers were legitimate marital decisions that Connor was aware of, but is now trying to weaponize in divorce proceedings. Bradley's confidence was growing. Connor's an insurance adjuster, not a prosecutor. He's out of his depth. Victoria laughed softly. You're right. I was being paranoid. That's my girl. Bradley's voice became warmer, more intimate. Tonight's fundraiser is going to be perfect. After I win the family court election, we'll have even more protection, even more opportunities. Opportunities to expand our services, to help more women like you secure their financial futures. Bradley was fully relaxed now, speaking freely. Vicky, what we're doing isn't just profitable. It's revolutionary. We're redistributing wealth from men who take their wives for granted to women who deserve better. Connor felt his jaw clench as he listened to Bradley's self-serving justification for systematic theft and fraud. The man had convinced himself he was some kind of social justice warrior rather than a common criminal. Bradley, Victoria said carefully, what happens to women like me after their divorces are final? Do you maintain ongoing relationships? Of course. Once someone has used our services, they become part of our extended family. We look out for each other. Bradley's tone suggested this, looking out, involved ongoing financial obligations. Jennifer Walsh, for example, still consults with me regularly on investment decisions. Dr. Morris frequently refers new clients to our practice. It's a mutually beneficial arrangement. Victoria had just gotten Bradley to admit to long-term extortion on tape. Connor felt a savage satisfaction as he realized how completely Bradley had incriminated himself. I should probably get ready for tonight, Victoria said. I want to look perfect for your big evening. You always look perfect, Vicky. That's one of the things I've always admired about you. As the conversation ended and Victoria left Bradley's office, Connor felt the familiar calm that preceded decisive action. Tonight, Bradley Hoffman would learn that some predators were actually prey in disguise. The trap was set, the evidence was secured, and justice was finally within reach. Chapter 8. The Reckoning. The Riverside Country Club's main ballroom was decorated in Bradley's campaign colors, navy blue and gold banners proclaiming "Families First," a vision for family court, hung from the crystal chandeliers. 200 of the county's most influential citizens mingled beneath them, sipping champagne and discussing the future of family law with the man they believed would bring integrity and competence to the bench. Connor stood near the back of the room, wearing his best suit and observing the crowd with tactical precision. Emma and Tyler were positioned at different points around the ballroom, their phones ready to record from multiple angles. Victoria circulated near the front, playing her role as Bradley's devoted supporter while wearing a nearly invisible wire that transmitted everything to Connor's earpiece. Bradley worked the room like the seasoned politician he aspired to be, shaking hands, posing for photos, and delivering his carefully rehearsed talking points about protecting families and maintaining moral standards in the legal system. His wife Amanda stood beside him, glowing with pride at her husband's success and blissfully unaware that her marriage was built on systematic deception. At exactly 8:30, Bradley took the microphone for his keynote address. Connor watched from the back as his target basked in the applause, seeing a man who genuinely believed he was untouchable. "Ladies and gentlemen," Bradley began, his voice carrying easily through the sound system. "We gather tonight to discuss the future of family law in our community. For too long, our family courts have been places where marriages end in bitterness and children become pawns in adult conflicts." Connor checked his phone, seeing confirmation messages from Emma and Tyler. Everything was ready. "As your next family court judge, I pledge to bring integrity, wisdom, and moral clarity to these difficult proceedings. Families deserve better than the adversarial system that currently exists." Bradley continued speaking about the sanctity of marriage, the importance of protecting children, and the need for moral leadership in the judiciary. The irony was so thick that Connor almost admired the man's audacity. Halfway through the speech, Connor's phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "Package delivered to Channel 7. They're standing by." Another message from Tyler. "Bar Association president just arrived. He's at table 12. Connor looked around the room, identifying the key targets for maximum impact. The state bar president, 3 family court judges, the district attorney, 2 city council members, and a dozen prominent attorneys were all present. Bradley had assembled the perfect audience for his own destruction. As Bradley reached the climactic portion of his speech about holding people accountable for their choices, Connor walked quietly to the front of the room. Several people noticed his movement, but no one seemed alarmed by a well-dressed man approaching the speaker's area. "Thank you, Bradley," Connor said clearly, his voice carrying to the back of the room without amplification. That was truly inspiring. Bradley looked confused but maintained his politician's smile. "I'm sorry, do we know each other?" "We do now." Connor reached into his jacket and withdrew a thick manila envelope. "Connor Mitchell, I believe you know my wife Victoria." The smile faltered on Bradley's face as recognition dawned. Around the room, conversation stopped as people sensed something dramatic was about to happen. "Connor, what are you doing?" Victoria said loudly, playing her role perfectly. "This isn't the place for personal matters. Actually, it's the perfect place." Connor opened the envelope and withdrew a document. "Bradley, you've been giving a beautiful speech about integrity and moral leadership. I thought your supporters should know exactly what kind of leader they're endorsing." Bradley reached for the microphone, but Connor was faster, his military training evident in the smooth efficiency of his movements. "Ladies and gentlemen, the man asking for your votes as family court judge has spent the past 3 years systematically destroying families through fraud, extortion, and adultery." The ballroom erupted in shocked murmurs. Bradley tried to speak, but Connor's voice cut through the noise with commanding authority. "Bradley Hoffman has been operating a criminal enterprise designed to help wealthy women steal assets from their husbands during divorce proceedings. He's defrauded families out of hundreds of thousands of dollars while using his position as a divorce attorney to identify and manipulate vulnerable clients." "That's a lie," Bradley shouted, finally finding his voice. "Security. This man has disrupted my event with false accusations." Connor looked around the room, noting that several attendees were recording the confrontation with their phones. "False accusations? Bradley, would you like me to play the recording of our conversation this afternoon, where you confess to running an ongoing extortion operation against your former clients?" Bradley's face went white. "You're lying. There is no recording." Connor gestured to Victoria, who reached into her purse and withdrew a small recording device. "Actually, there is." The ballroom had gone completely silent. Connor could see shock, confusion, and growing understanding on faces throughout the crowd. Amanda Hoffman stood frozen behind the podium, staring at her husband with dawning horror. "Play it," someone called from the crowd. Connor recognized the voice as belonging to Judge Patricia Wells, the senior family court judge who would be Bradley's colleague if elected. Victoria activated the recorder, and Bradley's voice filled the ballroom through the sound system. "What we're doing isn't just profitable, Vicky. It's revolutionary. We're redistributing wealth from men who take their wives for granted to women who deserve better." The recording continued, capturing Bradley's admissions about ongoing relationships with former clients, his methods for hiding assets, and his plans to expand his criminal operation after winning the election. With each incriminating statement, Connor watched the crowd's shock transform into disgust and anger. When the recording ended, the silence was deafening. Bradley stood behind the podium like a man facing a firing squad, his political career and professional reputation disintegrating in real time. Judge Wells stood up from her table. "Mr. Hoffman, is this recording authentic?" Bradley tried to speak, but no words came out. His campaign manager, a sharp-looking woman in her 40s, was already edging toward the exit, clearly recognizing a sinking ship when she saw one. Connor stepped closer to the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, I have additional evidence that will be delivered to the appropriate authorities tonight. Mr. Hoffman has defrauded multiple families, corrupted legal proceedings, and violated his oath as an officer of the court." "Connor, please," Bradley finally managed to say. "This is a misunderstanding. We can work this out privately. The time for private conversations is over." Connor's voice carried the cold finality that his family had learned to recognize. "You destroyed my family for profit. You corrupted my children and stole their futures. You turned my wife into a criminal and my marriage into a fraud." Connor looked around the room, meeting the eyes of the people who would determine Bradley's fate. "This man asked you to trust him with the power to make decisions about families in crisis. I'm here to show you exactly who he really is." As if on cue, Emma and Tyler began moving through the crowd, distributing copies of the evidence packages Connor had prepared. Financial records, surveillance photos, communications intercepts, and victim statements painted a comprehensive picture of Bradley's criminal enterprise. Amanda Hoffman suddenly stepped forward, her face pale, but her voice steady. "Bradley, is this true? Are you having an affair? Are you stealing from clients?" Bradley looked at his wife, seeing his personal life joining his professional collapse. "Amanda, I can explain." "No." Amanda's voice cut through his attempt at explanation. 20 years of marriage, 3 children, and you've been living a lie this entire time." She removed her wedding ring and placed it on the podium beside the microphone. "Congratulations, Bradley. You've destroyed our family too." As Amanda walked out of the ballroom, the crowd began to disperse. Some people approached Connor with questions, others hurried toward the exits, and a few gathered around Bradley like sharks sensing blood in the water. Connor felt Emma and Tyler appear beside him, their mission complete. Victoria stood near the wall, watching the destruction of the man who had manipulated her with an expression of grim satisfaction. "Dad," Tyler said quietly, "Channel 7 is here. They want to interview you." Connor nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. "Emma, go help your mother get home safely. Tyler, stay with me for the media." As Connor prepared to face the cameras, he reflected on how completely the tables had turned. 3 days ago, Victoria had smugly excluded him from family decisions. Tonight, Bradley Hoffman's career was over, his marriage was destroyed, and his criminal operation was exposed to the world. The wolf had finally revealed his true nature, and the hunting was almost complete. Chapter 9, No Forgiveness. 6 months later, Connor sat in the study of his grandfather's house, now his house, reviewing the final asset recovery reports. The legal proceedings had moved with surprising speed once Bradley's criminal operation became public knowledge. Federal charges, state bar sanctions, civil lawsuits, and divorce proceedings had created a cascade of consequences that left Bradley and his co-conspirators facing years of litigation and potential prison time. Connor had recovered almost all of the stolen assets, plus damages and penalties that left him significantly wealthier than before Victoria's betrayal began. More importantly, the victims' fund he'd established had helped other families rebuild their finances after Bradley's fraudulent schemes. Emma knocked on the study door, carrying 2 cups of coffee. At 23, she'd matured considerably over the past months, channeling her analytical skills into legitimate pursuits rather than seeking revenge. She was finishing her master's degree in forensic accounting and had already received job offers from 3 major firms. "How are the final numbers looking?" she asked, settling into the chair across from his desk. "Better than expected." Connor accepted the coffee gratefully. The prosecutor's estimate we'll recover 93% of the stolen assets, and the civil judgments should cover the rest. And Bradley. 34 counts of fraud, 6 counts of extortion, multiple bar violations, and a divorce that's going to leave him with nothing. Connor's voice held no satisfaction, just stating facts. He'll probably serve 8 to 12 years if he accepts the plea bargain. Emma nodded thoughtfully. Do you feel sorry for him? No. Connor's answer was immediate and definitive. I feel sorry for his children, his wife, his victims, and the legitimate clients who trusted him. But Bradley made his choices with full knowledge of the consequences. Tyler appeared in the doorway, now 6 feet tall and looking more like a man than a teenager. His senior year had been complicated by the family scandal, but he'd handled the attention and gossip with remarkable maturity. He'd been accepted to 3 universities and planned to study criminal justice. Dad, Mom's here, Tyler said. She wants to talk to you. Connor looked at his son's face, reading the complex emotions there. Tyler had maintained a civil relationship with Victoria over the past months, but their connection had been permanently altered by her betrayal. Did she say what about? She wants to discuss reconciliation. Again, Emma sighed. How many times is she going to try this? Until she accepts that some things can't be fixed, Connor replied. Send her in, Tyler. But you and Emma don't need to hear this conversation again. Victoria entered the study looking healthier than she had in months. Her cooperation with authorities had earned her immunity from prosecution, and she'd used the time to rebuild herself physically and emotionally. She'd found work at a nonprofit organization, started therapy, and was slowly paying back the money she'd stolen from Emma's college fund. Hello, Connor. She took the chair Emma had vacated. Thank you for seeing me. Victoria. Connor's tone was polite but neutral. What can I do for you? I've been thinking about what we discussed last month. About forgiveness, about rebuilding, about whether we could find a way forward together. Connor studied his ex-wife's face, seeing genuine remorse mixed with hope that he knew he was about to extinguish. And I know I made terrible mistakes. I know I hurt you and the children in ways that can't be easily repaired. Victoria's voice was steady, controlled. But we had 23 good years before everything went wrong. We built a family together, shared a life, loved each other. Yes, we did. Those years weren't a lie, Connor. The person you married, the woman who gave birth to Emma and Tyler, the partner who supported your career and shared your dreams. She was real. Connor nodded slowly. She was real. But she was also the person who chose to betray everything we built together. Who chose to steal from our children's future. Who chose to corrupt our daughter into helping commit crimes against our family. I was lost, Connor. I made decisions based on feeling neglected and unimportant, and I convinced myself I deserved things I didn't deserve. Victoria leaned forward. But I found my way back. I'm in therapy. I'm making amends. I'm trying to become the person I should have been all along. I'm glad you're doing better, Victoria. Genuinely. Connor's voice held warmth, but no invitation. The children need you to be healthy and present in their lives. But forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation. Healing doesn't require forgetting. Moving forward doesn't require going backward. Victoria's composure cracked slightly. Connor, I love you. I know I destroyed what we had, but I still love you. Doesn't that count for anything? Connor was quiet for a long moment, considering his words carefully. Love isn't enough, Victoria. Trust is the foundation of marriage, and you didn't just break that trust. You systematically destroyed it over more than a year. You looked me in the eye every day while stealing from our family. You manipulated our children into helping you betray me. You turned our marriage into a criminal conspiracy. I can rebuild that trust. I can prove that I've changed, that I'm worthy of a second chance. You can rebuild your relationship with yourself. You can repair your connections with Emma and Tyler over time, if they choose to allow it. But what we had as husband and wife is over. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. So that's it. 23 years of marriage, and you won't even consider the possibility of forgiveness. Connor felt a familiar stillness settle over him. Not the predatory calm of the hunt, but the finality of a decision made and accepted. Victoria, I forgave you months ago. I released my anger, my desire for revenge, my need to punish you. I forgave you for my own peace of mind, not because you earned it. Then why? Because forgiveness doesn't mean trust. Because loving someone doesn't mean accepting betrayal. Because mercy doesn't require putting yourself in position to be victimized again. Connor's voice remained gentle but implacable. I forgive you, Victoria, but I will never trust you again. And without trust, we can't have a marriage. Victoria wiped her eyes, finally understanding that no amount of remorse or reformation would change Connor's decision. What about the children? How do we handle that going forward? We co-parent professionally and respectfully. We attend their graduations, their weddings, their important moments as adults. We act like mature people who share children, but nothing else. And if they want us to be a family again, they're adults, Victoria. They understand the difference between wanting something and accepting reality. Connor stood up, indicating the conversation was over. Emma and Tyler love both of us, but they also understand that some betrayals change relationships permanently. Victoria rose as well, her hope finally extinguished. I'm sorry, Connor. For everything. I know you are. And I hope you continue building a better life for yourself. After Victoria left, Connor returned to his desk and the asset recovery reports. Through the window, he could see Tyler and Emma talking on the back porch, their relationship with each other stronger than ever despite the family upheaval. Connor reflected on the past 6 months, on the choices made and consequences accepted. He'd destroyed Bradley completely, recovered his stolen assets, and protected his children's futures. More importantly, he learned that strength wasn't about forgiving those who betrayed you. It was about refusing to allow betrayal to define your future. The wolf had won the hunt, but more importantly, the man had found his family again. His phone buzzed with a text from Tyler. Dad, Emma and I are thinking about pizza for dinner. Want to join us? Connor smiled, feeling something he hadn't experienced in years. Simple contentment with the family he had rather than grief for the family he'd lost. He typed back, absolutely. Choose whatever you want. It's my treat. As the sun set over the house that was now truly his, Connor felt the deep satisfaction of a man who had faced betrayal, chosen justice over revenge, and emerged stronger than before. Some wolves learn to be sheep for survival. But sometimes, the most dangerous thing you could do was assume the sheep couldn't remember how to be wolves. The hunt was over. The family was safe. And Connor Mitchell had finally come home to himself.